Lowe's knows how to help you get the most out of your store run. That's why members save more with MyLowe's Rewards. Earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases. Get access to member-only deals and free member gifts. Plus, unlock free standard shipping when you reach Silver Key status. So what are you waiting for? Join for free today. Lowe's. We help. You save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Today on CityCast Denver, we broke the story last week that some top restaurateurs and influential Democrats have been working on new legislation to save local restaurants by essentially lowering the tipped minimum wage. But the proposal is super confusing, and all we've heard so far is political spin. So I've got one of my all-time favorite guests on today to do what she does best, demystify the murky restaurant business and help us understand what this new proposal would mean for diners. Today is Wednesday, February 12th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Helen Shute, welcome to CityCast Denver.
Thank you.
I am so glad that you're back here with me because I just had this conversation with this restaurateur guy and this policy analyst about this big, complicated idea they're excited about and they think the governor's going to get on board with. But honestly, after this episode, I am more confused than ever. And I know you know how to decipher this kind of thing. Can we just start with like the tipped minimum wage restaurant crisis problem, how you understand it?
Yeah. So listeners, do not feel bad if you were confused by that episode because this is kind of what I do day to day. And I was confused by that episode.
These regulations are like incredibly complicated.
Yes, but it can be simplified to one statement, which is increasing the tip credit will decrease a restaurant's labor costs. That is dead stop, the summary, the argument. All other arguments past that relies on a ton of hypotheticals, right? So, if we decrease labor costs, now we have more money as a restaurant. What could we do with that money? A lot of restaurants say they want to increase the base wage of their back of house or their non-tipped employees, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of them say we would hire more chefs, we would hire more servers, and that would increase capacity of the restaurant, bring in more revenue, maybe offer better service, and therefore increasing tips and everyone's take-home pay as well.
Yeah.
Some people say, we'll put it into marketing, and that way we will also attract more customers to the restaurant, so on and so forth.
But it really just boils down to this simple fact of the restaurants want more of the money that's coming in to be in their control.
Exactly. And you will hear them say the argument of this is not about lowering the minimum wage. This is not about the minimum wage.
This was the spin that I could not unspin last week.
So what they're referencing is that by law, restaurants, if a server who's being paid at the tipped, they have the tip credit, right? So in Denver, the minimum wage is almost $19. A tipped employee can be paid at $15, $3 less, right? If they are not making up at least $3 in tip every hour and not making that minimum wage, then the restaurant by law is required to supplement that and get them to the minimum wage.
Right.
So the argument is like, no matter how big the tip credit is, all tipped employees will at least make the minimum wage. Now, first off of personal experience and talking to restaurant workers, a lot of restaurants don't do that. And I'm not talking about nice restaurants. I'm not talking about upscale restaurants and stuff. I'm talking about restaurants I used to work at.
Okay.
If you don't make that minimum wage because the tip is lousy or service was slow, my employers were not making it up for me.
No, they're keeping you at the base pay of that tip, quote unquote, tipped minimum wage.
Exactly.
$15.79 right now.
But it is illegal. Like, they are not supposed, and if anyone out there is working for a restaurant and you have your take-home pay and you divided it by the hours that you work and it is not at least minimum wage, which, in Denver, it should be $19 per hour, your employer is violating the law.
Yeah. And you know who you should call is Matthew Fritz Maurer at the Denver Auditor's Office. He's running the wage theft division, and he has got a lot of people working for him, smart people, and they want to help you. And I saw people, in response to this episode, I saw someone was like, it was the top voted comment on the Denver food subreddit. Someone was like, oh yeah, my employer actually just doesn't pay me the minimum wage at all. And then everyone was like, oh, I wonder how
It's
prevalent
really
it is.
common. It's really common because it's also very, very complicated to calculate.
I mean, this was my job last week. I spent hours trying to figure this out and I couldn't do it. I mean, you're working hard. I don't blame anyone for not being able to do it. It's one of those things where the power imbalance of information just really hurts the person that doesn't have the power.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what they mean when they say everyone's still making minimum wage. In fact, we think minimum wage should be higher.
Mm-hmm.
We think it should be higher. But that's because the customer is taking on more of the burden of getting that tipped employee past minimum wage.
Okay, let's move on to the next step of this conversation because I think we've deciphered what they were trying to do. They're trying to spin this. What I was so struck by in that conversation was when I asked Juan Padro, the CEO of Culinary Creative Group, about value and restaurants and how changing the law around minimum wage would affect the value that diners feel in Denver restaurants, because that's the problem diners see. Everyone's sick of walking out of a restaurant feeling that they paid way too much for way too little. You hear it from everybody. And his answer was just like, well, if we made the change, I would get more profit. So I wonder, do you see, what do you see in the value equation, the value side of this debate?
So to take a step back, be very, very simplistic about this, right? Value can be kind of construed in three different pillars, I guess. There's price, affordability, price, sheer price. And then there's also the quality of the food, the service that you're getting, the experience that you're getting at the restaurant. And then there's also kind of the conscience, moral conscience aspect of it, of are the people who are serving me, who are working in this restaurant, being paid livable wages? Are they having a good quality of life? Are they having a safe work environment? Are they enjoying the work that they do? And I think a lot of the issue is that Denver is going through a little bit of an identity crisis of it doesn't know how it's defining value, right? So probably 20 years ago, and Bree, you grew up in Denver, right? Yeah.
Our host Bree is off mic right now, confirming that she grew up in Denver. Helen, you got a question for Bree?
So the values that was more on low price. Maybe quality wasn't as of concern. There was a libertarian streak, so definitely you don't want a lot of regulation in your restaurants. Value was seen as a pure price play, right? Mom and pop restaurants, diners.
Well, yeah, and you made this point in an email when you said sports bars too. Again, sports bars, it's a totally different ballgame these days. You can go to a sports bar and get a gourmet burger. It's different now. And the high-end stuff was a steakhouse. So I totally agree the value, but it also was like the types of places we were more used to going to.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, 20 years ago, people were saying, I'm getting my value from going to these places, paying a low price. I want the $7 burger. That's what I consider a good value of a meal. And then America has changed.
Yeah.
Denver's gotten younger. It's gotten wealthier. A lot of transplants from East Coast, California, Texas. They are bringing different perspectives of what is value to me, right? A lot of them they want to know that their servers are getting health benefits. They want to know that they're getting paid a livable wage. People are coming in with high expectations for quality of food. We got Michelin here. It's got to feel Michelin. So now you kind of have no kind of consensus or gathering around what is actually valued to restaurants. And when you put in regulation, it is across the board, right? Minimum wage is the same for the whole state, and then cities can raise above it. Development and planning practices, building, permitting, all of these are across the board, and they speak to a particular prioritization in that value. So some of these regulations, prioritize servers getting paid a high minimum wage. Some of this regulation prioritize making it really difficult to build, not to standards, to codes or stuff like that.
Yeah, food safety. This is where we get into some of those like Colorado libertarian streak things, like how our governor loves raw milk. He wants to decrease regulations, make things easier for businesses, maybe open things up for people who like raw milk, but maybe a little bit more unsafe, depending on how you feel about that stuff.
Yeah, and whatever thing you do across the board, because we have no consensus, because our value prioritization is so dispersed in Colorado and in Denver, I feel like specifically greater Denver, you just end up making people angry. You make a lot of people angry because it's in conflict with what they feel is valuable and what they feel like they want. And the issue is you have a lot of small businesses and even people who have chosen to live here, who have chosen to start small businesses under that old value system, right?
Yeah.
And their business model requires that the regulations and the environment and their customers' attitudes reflect that old value system. And it's very hard to tell a small business, you gotta change now with almost no support. And what I see is a lot of tension, and it's all put on the restaurants to work in that constrained environment that regulations put on them, and then try to appease a customer base that wants something completely different.
An expectations mismatch leads to people not feeling like they're getting a good value.
Exactly.
I want to have one example of this because I when you wrote this in your email, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Because like other places do it differently was the point you were making. Like Portland, for example, I checked in with CityCast Portland, my counterpart over there, to ask how their restaurant scene is doing, what they do. He was like, restaurants are closing like crazy there as well. But I was like, so what's the minimum wage law? And he was like, 1 minimum wage. There's no such thing as a tip credit. There's just 1 minimum wage. And if workers make tips, they make tips. And it's like, oh man, if we didn't have a tip credit here, restaurateurs would be screaming. They would be screaming.
Let me take it further. Tips are whack. If we did not have tips in America.
We could talk about Singapore. Tell me about Singapore.
So in Singapore, it is a different environment where eating out is seen as a service. It is a convenience because so many people live in a very dense island. It's a luxury to cook at home. It's a luxury to have a big kitchen. It's annoying to go to the grocery store, schlep up all your groceries to a high-rise apartment in your tiny little apartment, find a little space in your fridge and cook food. So the government looks at eating out, the restaurants, hawker stands, food stalls, that is a public service. And so they need to preserve all different tiers of affordability in terms of price and value to their customers. So when Singapore was starting to modernize, there was a big push to make food stands, hawker stands more clean, more safe, more healthy. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to move them off the streets also because it was causing a lot of traffic issues and obviously not the healthiest, safest way to operate a food stand.
They wanted to regulate it.
Exactly. They wanted to regulate it. So what they did is they did put in these new, health and safety, food inspection, national regulations. But what they did for these hawker stands who have been there for generations is they bought like government-owned and operated markets that they put all of these hawker stalls in. And so they're like, well, you can definitely fast track the permit when the government itself owns that building. It is making sure everything is to standard, and they're not operating it at a profit, obviously. They're basically just having a place where hawker stands can have and provide that public service to people to come and be able to literally get a meal for under 50 cents. Healthy meal. I
have to tell you, when you offered this example, I couldn't help but bring it back to Denver and think about the hot dog market here. And the hot dog carts outside of Ball Arena, which last summer went through this same batch of regulations. There was a health code violation crackdown over there, and it made it a lot harder for these guys who were operating without permits to be selling hot dogs to drunk people coming out of the Nuggets games and getting their their late night fix that they wanted, regardless of how they felt about the dirty water these dogs were cooked in. But then also the same side of it is Biker Jim, the Denver icon who started from a hot dog cart and now he's in Milk Market, which is essentially a regulated food stand hall where there's these slots that business owners can come in. And it was like, dang, that's kind of how we've put him in this box with our regulations. We've tried to put him into this space that maybe he doesn't fit in so good. Yeah, no,
there has to be trade-offs. If you want cheap, good food, maybe it's not going to be, if you want...
Maybe you're going to feel a little sick.
Yeah. If you want really good, regulated, high-quality food, it's not going to be cheap. Like, there has to be trade-offs. And the only time that it can be balanced or swung in a unnatural direction is if government puts their weight on the scale. But it's delicate, and it's a fine balance, and it's dynamic, and it's extremely hard. And so I think the libertarian case is it's so difficult. You have such a bigger chance of messing something up. Like, no government regulation.
Yeah, which is, I think, why some people are skeptical of these business owners, these restaurant owners calling for a lower tipped minimum wage, because it's like, why is restaurants closing the problem we're trying to solve? Why not better value for customers? Why not safer? Why not, tastier, lower ingredient? You could optimize for any of these factors. If we let them determine what the thing is to focus on, we're leading ourselves along their path.
Exactly.
This episode is brought to you by Denver Health. Did you know that Denver Health is home to one of the most comprehensive pediatric care systems in Denver? From bumps, bruises, and fevers to more serious conditions, Denver Health's pediatric urgent care is there for families when their little ones need immediate attention. But sometimes a child's care requires more than an urgent visit. That's where Denver Health's inpatient pediatric unit comes in. As part of a level 1 trauma hospital, this specialized unit is equipped to handle complex conditions, ensuring children receive expert quality care from board-certified pediatricians that you can trust. With providers trained to treat kids from newborns to teens, families can trust Denver Health's pediatric team to deliver comprehensive, compassionate care when it matters most. To schedule a pediatric appointment, call 720-928-2127. That's 720-928-2127.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
But we have to get to the fun stuff here, because the reason why people are here is for recommendations. And you did some reporting for Westword of some bunch of businesses who are trying to navigate this value issue. I want to talk about them.
Yeah, so when they're in this kind of environment, restaurants have to do kind of their own ad hoc strategies, right? So I was talking to them and being like, you're on your own. What are you doing to try to make it more affordable? Because they're getting it from all sides, right? Mm-hmm. Customers are angry that they're having to pay $20 to $25 for a burger. And then the government's like, no, you got to pay, your people, $20+ an hour. And so they've come up with a variety of solutions. All of them, to me, are questionably sustainable, right? All of them use the argument of we're going to take smaller margins and try to make it up in volume, which in Denver, where eating out is a luxury, not a convenience, causes me concern. And I'm ready to be proven wrong. I'm happy to be proven wrong. And so I kind of spoke to a lot of restaurants and found 4 different buckets of strategies that they're trying to do. The most obvious one being adding or even expanding their happy hours, providing that discount to their customers. Second is kind of the Costco mentality of we are going to give you more for less. Mm-hmm. So you might actually spend more than you originally intended when you stepped into the restaurant, but you're getting more. So you think it's a deal. Costco mentality. Mm-hmm. And then there's third, which is they have a separate menu or a separate section of the restaurant, usually a bar program or something, where the prices are just going to be cheaper. And you're going to get either a lower quality of food, and not necessarily like lower quality as in it's going to be bad food, but maybe just not, meats.
Maybe there's not caviar on the thing. Tell me about some of those. I have to say, I don't know if I can think of one.
So Noisette is starting a bar program. Noisette's the James Beard winner. When you go there, you would expect to spend more than, $100 per person if you're getting wine, especially with your meal. But they also are starting a bar program where they're doing burgers, Huh. So
probably a killer burger.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they kind of trade off of like, we have that prestige of doing really refined dining, but you can come here and you can get a lower price for the same chef, the same kitchen that's going to cook that burger.
Interesting. What about the happy hours? Who's got the most aggressive happy hour?
I don't know about most aggressive because the deals change every single day. So I don't want to say something, but my favorite
Tell me your
happy
favorite.
hour is Steuben's, because that is you know what you're going to get. $13 for a good burger, fries, and a beer. That's a good deal. And you know what to expect. Mm-hmm. That's solid.
I was at Steuben's recently. I had a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
My brother-in-law, I have to give a shout out here to Jake. He's trying to get himself booked on the podcast because he says he wants to find the best French fry in Denver.
Okay.
I know everyone has their own opinion about this. I would love to hear listeners' opinions about this. Please call in. Double fried. The ones that are like extra crispy. Yes. Like I like those too. They have them at Las Tortas. Gaia Masala Burger. I have a running list of places that offer those.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite. But he says Steuben's is his favorite.
Okay. So yeah, $13.
There
get
you
a burger,
go.
Get a fries, get a beer.
There you go.
Tip your waiter.
You know who else has a good one is Redeemer Pizza.
Oh yeah, I think
on the pizza, on the slice counter in the back. It's like a lunch deal, and it's $10 for a slice and a salad, and the salad is substantial. I was very happy with this deal. That's a great pizza place too.
Another place where I go when I'm with my girlfriends and I want the vibe, I want to pay for a little bit of vibe and ambiance, not just pure price, is Kawani.
Kawani.
Yeah, they're the Asian fusion restaurant downtown. So it's $10 cocktails, and I believe their crab fried rice and udon are around $13. Very vibey, very good place to go, with the girls, with your friends, chill.
Nice.
That's a good place.
A non-traditional and playful take on a Japanese izakaya
Yes.
is their pitch. That
Yes.
sounds great. So let's talk about the last one, which is like you called it the nuclear option.
That's just lowering your menu prices.
Yeah. Who's doing that?
American Elm.
Tell me about them.
Their initiative is actually what started this article. Because we found out about the fact that they are going to, for 80% of their menu items, lower it by $2 to $4, which is a lot.
Honestly, unheard of.
Right. And a lot of it is kind of reevaluating costs, maybe slimming down the portion sizes for a few of the dishes. But mostly, they're just going to take lower margins because they're a neighborhood spot. They depend on regulars. And a lot of the regulars are saying, we cannot keep coming 2 times, 3 times a week. And so they are just going forward and just bringing down the menu prices and hoping that the slim profit that they have is still going to be enough. There's also the marketing aspect of being able to be one of the only restaurants in Colorado to be, we're lowering menu prices.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about them.
Yeah,
exactly. It's new. It's
Exactly.
interesting. I wish them a lot of luck. I will be watching what happens with that experiment.
He said a lot of it was just being more conscious of costs, right? Trying to reuse parts of an animal or other parts, scraps, vegetable scraps of it, and trying to be more creative. And when they're putting new dishes, because they do rotate their dishes quite seasonally, when they are putting on new dishes, trying to keep it in the back of their mind of that cost equation. So I hope it will work. Their new prices, I think, rolled out possibly this week or maybe next week. And so they'll soon see kind of the impact. They said that their employees were really happy about this message because they can now go to the customers and be like, yeah, we've done the work to decrease menu prices.
Interesting.
And it endears them versus all the servers right now in Denver who have to be like, yeah, it's $25 for a burger.
Although the servers have the incentive because the higher the menu price, the higher the percentage for the tip.
Again, trying to make it up in volume.
Yeah.
Which I feel like
You got to believe in it. That's the other thing I've learned about this is like when you're a restaurant and you lose the support of your staff and your servers, they don't believe in your particular model because everyone's got a different model. You're done. That's what happened to Danny Meyer when he switched to the service fee model. His servers revolted and it just didn't work.
For the individual server, service charge or no tipping is not beneficial for the individual server.
Helen, any last restaurant you want to shout out for something particularly innovative or interesting or maybe just a deal that you like, that you want to return to, that you think listeners should know about?
Okay, I'm Asian, so I love a good deal.
Hell yeah, me too.
So my favorite all-you-can-eat spot right now is Chubby Cattle.
I've never been. Is that the one on South Broadway, actually?
Yes.
Tell me about
Recently opened. So it is for $50, which, yes, high price.
Yeah.
But save up the stomach room. Go to Chubby Cattle. For $50, you get unlimited Korean barbecue, unlimited nigiri sashimi and sushi rolls, and a giant pot of hot pot with unlimited ingredients.
Wow.
It is a place you go to eat,
Yeah.
You're not going there to dine. Man. You're not going there to socialize. You're there to eat.
Well, there's your Valentine's Day recommendation from Helen.
It's not a bad recommendation.
I mean, that'd be a fun Valentine's date. Folks, you heard the call-outs. Here's what we want to know from you. French fries. What's the best place for French fries? And also deals that you like. Spread the love. Everyone wants to find a good value. And if you found one, we want to hear about it. So let us know. Call in 720-500-5418. Helen, thank you so much for coming back.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell the heroes at American Elm about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. If you love the show, come see us in person at Heyday. It's an indoor fair with a distinctly Denver twist on Saturday, March 8th. Get your tickets now at heydaydenver.com. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then. All right, check. Hello. Coming at you live on tape on the other side of a cold.